Welcome to our virtual coffee shop. Even today, as usual in our Meet the Coffee Farmer interviews, we are going to follow the trail of this espresso cup. We are going to know more about the territories where the coffee comes from. We are going to know more about the farmers producing this coffee, about their daily life, the care they put in their coffee, and also the problems and the opportunities they face every day. However, today we are not going to meet a farmer, but we are going to meet instead a person that, within a project, is trying to join together, to link together a long chain made of farmers, importers, roasters, baristas, and even final clients in a project that probably is related with everybody, with the human beings. Today, in fact, we are going to meet Nora Burkey. She is part of the team that has created the SCA Coffee Sustainable Project. So we hope that you are going to enjoy this interview. As usual, before to start, we want to thank our supporters. For instance, the coffees of Mocafer, the specialty coffees of CaffèLab, our school, the Espresso Academy, and even the machines we use to extract our espressos, La San Marco. We hope you enjoyed it. If you enjoy, continue to follow us for the next interviews and have a good coffee. Well, today we have a fantastic chance not to speak with the farmer. Today we are not into a coffee farm, but we are in a very, very interesting place anyway. Probably we are with somebody that is not a farmer, but is already working with many farms instead. We are speaking today with Nora Burkey. She's a SCA coordinator, is one of the persons that has collaborated in order to create the new SCA Sustainability Coffee Program. Well, Nora, thank you to be here. Thank you for your time. Thank you for us to give us the chance. Can you add maybe something to my presentation? For sure.
Yes, thanks. Thanks for having me. Yes, as you mentioned, I'm one of the 4 creators of the SCA Coffee Sustainability Program, which is a 3-part curriculum. And also I'm the founder and executive director of a nonprofit that, yes, works with coffee farmers as well as provides courses in sustainability. And we do consulting as well, called the Chain Collaborative.
Okay. How many persons, by the way, has collaborated to this program?
With the Coffee Sustainability Program, it's, the creators are myself, Erica Koss, Dr. Kate Fisher, and Haynes Motzinger. So 4 of us, but then we had reviewers all throughout the industry. There are probably about 20 different reviewers. And for those students that have gone through the program, I've had hundreds of students, and I know my co-teachers have had many students as well. So, and I've taught students from over 50 countries, so it's really resonating throughout the globe.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
How much time is taken to develop the program? How long has been the
we launched,
project?
I think we designed, if my memory serves, we designed the program in 2018, and I believe it launched in 2019. And but I could, everything pre-COVID is a blur, so maybe I don't know.
You're right. Okay, it's a bit foggy the last years.
But I think we took about 6 months to 9 months to develop the program, and then to fully take the program, there's the 3 levels, and so it if you were probably would take a student about a year to complete the whole program, but yeah, we can get more into that to describe the 3 levels if you'd like.
Anyway, before to start to speak about the sustainability in coffee itself, could you tell us something about the concept itself of sustainability? What is it? It seems to be very large.
Yes, it is. Yeah. And so this is, something we really deal with at the foundation level. We talk about the history of sustainability as a term. And so, how it came to be, and just, kind of a quick lesson. Now we hear of it and we understand it as the 3 pillars. So sustainability must be social, have social considerations, environmental, and economic. But that really grew when this concept of sustainability first emerged, and the term sustainable was attached to the term development. Prior to that, we just had the term development, which really we understood growth as primarily economic, and the importance was economic concerns. When the term sustainable was added onto that, people understood that we needed to have an environmental focus to our growth models, or else we actually into the future, we're not going to be able to grow economically unless we focused on doing so in an environmentally friendly way. So we were regenerating resources and not depleting them. And then over time, this moved into more of a social justice mindset, to make sure that our work is not just focused on taking care of the environment and growing economically, providing jobs, but doing so in a way that's really fair to everybody, and accounts for some of those kind of historical injustices socially. So all of this and more we discuss throughout the program.
Well, it's so wide. It seems to involve from all the phases of it, from the producers, from the consumers, probably mainly. It really looks like a choice of life, a style of life.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's not, we always say it's not like a destination, right? It's not something you just become sustainable. It has to be something you're always, living that way and trying to think about how you can be more sustainable and reach greater sustainability in your actions. And that looks differently if you're a producer, if you're a consumer, if you're both, right? Producers also consume. So if you're an importer, whatever the case might be, we all have different ways we engage with sustainability.
Okay. Speaking with baristas, I suppose at the end we are trying also to speak with final clients, with the people enjoying a cup of espresso at the counter. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's such a very large approach, to the lifestyle in general. How can it be transmitted in some way? It seems so large and complicated. I think it can be complicated. Probably step by step it can be done.
Yeah, this is a question that I always get in terms of how to communicate the concept to coffee enthusiasts and people who are not as engaged in the coffee industry. How can we tell the consumer the importance of paying more, or buying coffee that was sourced more ethically? And it is such a challenge. I don't have one specific answer for people in terms of how to better kind of engage consumers, but I think in part because it's so culturally different, right? Consumers in Italy are different from consumers where I'm based in Pennsylvania. So it is definitely a challenge. And I had a lot of students that kind of in their own context have designed maybe outreach or communications plans to be able to better inform their own customers, but baristas as well. And because that's the challenge, right? I mean, the people that are most engaged with consumers are probably the barista. And one of the, I think, biggest barriers is sometimes they might have only 1 minute, right, with a consumer or less to get across certain information. And so there is kind of a lot of pressure put on baristas. And so, I think there's a lot of work to be done to both boost kind of awareness of the barista profession, so that when they are communicating this information, they're both, compensated for that knowledge, but also have the kind of recognition that they hold with them a lot of knowledge that should be respected, right? So, but yeah, easier said than done.
Wait, it seems to me that the concept of sustainability can be probably a bit more complicated to be understood by the Western, the development world, I can say, because probably we are already living since decades, over that level, okay? And maybe our idea of sustainability is anyway too high if compared with what really is sustainability. Is it correct?
Well, yeah, I think, you mentioned the kind of Western perspective, and I do think, of course, given historical, just historical power dynamics and injustices, for sure, the West has dominated, and the Western perspective has become often what is people expect that, to be fully knowledgeable on sustainability, you have to have the Western perspective of sustainability. And there's obviously something really problematic about that. I think one of the challenges with the coffee industry is that when sustainability is used as kind of a marketing tool, right? Like you're telling consumers that you should buy sustainable products and using that as sort of a market tool, which in certain senses is important, right? You want consumers to buy more sustainable products, but then you have to market it in such a way that's understandable to your audience. So it gets marketed, if you're Western-based company and that kind of Western-based perspective. I actually think that's a lot easier because the language is created, right? Already we have the language for sustainable. But you go to a place like, Vietnam, and there's no like single word for the, for sustainable. So I think this is where the disconnect happens, where a buyer would say, I want a sustainable coffee. And without really fully being able to describe what that is, you actually realize that producers, when they hear the term sustainable coffee, they might associate it with something else, and you might have a different definition. So I think for that reason, it's really important not just to know the term sustainable coffee, but actually really be able to say, this is specifically what I'm looking for when I say sustainable coffee, so that you have more of a trusting and just kind of relationship where there's clear communication. And producers can say what sustainability means to them. As buyers, you can say what it means to you, and you can meet somewhere in the middle. Otherwise, you're not providing anyone the tools to actually meet what it is that you're looking for or able to provide.
By the way, do you think in the coffee, in the coffee road from the very plantation to the final consumer, there are any category of enemies about the sustainability? Somebody that is like rowing against, somebody that is still linked with the old approach. I don't know how complicated is this question.
Yeah, no, well, it's a complicated topic. I think what this points to is probably any company that is trying to grow and grow and grow their business economically, and decoupling that from sustainability is sort of the enemy of sustainability, whether they know it or not, because you can't grow your business without considering sustainability, because as we're looking towards the future because of climate change. We're seeing a future where there isn't going to be as much coffee production if we don't take serious efforts to combat and adapt to climate change. So, you're going to see that if you don't take this action, you're not going to have coffee in the future. And at the same time, if you don't take action on living income and other elements, socioeconomic elements of sustainability, people are going to be forced to leave coffee. And it's not for a disinterest, it's for an inability to manage the costs, right? And what it really costs, especially as things get more costly with environmental, impacts. So I think, I would say, I don't think there's so many people out there right now in the coffee world who are actively saying sustainability is not important. It's more about looking at their actions and understanding, are they really working towards, regenerative agriculture and living income in their work? And if not, then they're sort of an enemy of sustainability and an enemy of themselves at the end of the day, because they're not going to get where they want to be.
Yeah, I see. And you have spoken about the fact that, of course, the sustainability chain is more expensive than normal coffee. Mm-hmm. Do you think that the main enemy can also become the final client? He is ready to spend more money?
Yeah. So you're just kind of reading my mind, because as I was talking, I was thinking like, well...
Of course, I'm just speaking right now as the last customer of just entering the coffee shop, okay?
Yeah,
in Italy, there is a very long story, we are fighting. Because the price of the cup of espresso is more or less,
Yeah, people expect it to be a certain thing, right? And I know it's especially strong in Italy. So, so I think that's the question, right? I mean, I say this, that if you don't account for living income and environmental protection, that you're, not going to see growth of your coffee business in the future, because the coffee just won't be there, the workers won't be there. At the same time, it's an exploitative industry, and it has been for a long time, and it relies on this underpaid labor. And that model has worked, under capitalism and the world economy for so long that it's almost unimaginable that it won't continue to work. Even though it's not fair, it still will continue to work. So I do think that, you could continue in this kind of exploitative fashion. and still make profit if you want. I wouldn't recommend it.
But not for the long,
I think as you pointed out, there's also a lot of people that actually don't want to continue in that fashion. They do want to see producers being paid living income, baristas being paid what they deserve, and yet, it seems impossible to do that when consumers won't be able to be willing to pay for it, or I think also afford it, because I think there's also this concern that if you raise the price of coffee to meet some other targets, then are you only inviting the wealthiest clients to participate in your coffee business? And that is problematic locally. So, this is also why in some of my classes I refer to the theories of conflict transformation, because Johan Galtung is the founder of considered sort of the founder or father of conflict transformation studies. And he points out that what we're looking at with all of this points to a conflict, that, you can't simply raise the price of coffee to meet living income targets without raising the price to consumers. And then maybe that would cause others to be able to not participate given the price of that. And so these are all conflicts. And he says to overcome this, we need actually not a solution per se, but a transformation of systems, which I think is actually what we're looking at, what we need in coffee. But of course, transformation is hard. And that's also what Galtung calls conflict transformation, is the art of the impossible. So it's sort of referencing actually what we need in coffee is a whole system transformation. And it is sort of the art of the impossible, which, can seem distressing, because then what do we do as individuals? But it does point to the bigger reality that we are facing, and why it's not just, an easy click of your fingers. Okay, I've solved the problem.
By the way, probably you're also touching the other phases. So far I worked as the lawyer of the devil, okay? Mm-hmm. But of course, I think in your activity has also touched the advantages that this approach is bringing to some communities, to some people, to some farmers or so. So I think it's something that, it works, probably it goes step by step, slowly, but also it's changing the life of somebody already.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's what I encourage students to keep in mind is, you can't change the whole system by yourself. You can't change the world by yourself, but you can do something and make a small step where you are, which is better in a way, right? I mean, if you can make change in your own context, then that context better. So, it probably isn't up to each individual barista, right, from one part of the world to solve a problem for a farmer in another part of the world, because those who can solve that better are going to be those farmers themselves. So obviously we can work in collaboration, but working within your own context is really important to do something, get something started, and one thing builds on the other. So that's kind of what I encourage my students to keep in mind, what small change can you make now, and then what will that change lead to down the line.
Yeah, so we climbed the mountain and started with the first step.
Yes, exactly. Brick by brick, they also say, building building something.
Another, for sure, is the last. I heard about some critics about saying, sustainability at the end is a very conservative concept, they say. Something that now is considered to be unsustainable is going to be sustainable instead in the very future, when maybe because for new techniques or so on. So something that was considered unsustainable in the 50s, for instance, right now is done with a lot of success. Mm-hmm. Do you think it can be so? Also, can also be perceived with this approach, or has no sense? We are doing with our role right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that what you're pointing to is the need to understand time and time in history and context to really understand if something is sustainable. Because when things like certifications first came out, they were less common, right? So the premium that they provided, or the economic value, they had a higher value on the marketplace because they were more of a niche product. And now there are more certifications. So if they don't have a price floor, those certifications, the premium decreases. So you can't just look at something in terms of like the first year it was established. What changes over time that changes the impact of that solution. And so we always are learning new things. For example, in like the 70s, right, it was sort of the Green Revolution and intensive farming that was seen as the solution to, world hunger. And now, we know that intensive agriculture damaged the environment and therefore the ability to grow food and is not the solution to world hunger. So, I think whatever a potential solution was before might not be a solution now. At the same time, the way that people operated and sort of indigenous approaches to agriculture, from hundreds of years ago, people are realizing, well, that's super sustainable. So, it's not to say that things that were sustainable before are not. It just means that they all have to be understood, to keep learning about our solutions. Are they still working? When did they stop working? Do we go back 20 years to see what's the right solution? Do we go back hundreds of years? So I think it just is really understanding history the context that enables a solution to work or not work is something I also really encourage my students to understand.
Fantastic. By the way, you are speaking a lot with us. Thank you for it. About your experience as a trainer. Can you explain us about how the SCA Sustainability Program, how it is structured?
Sure. So, it starts with the foundation level, and I definitely encourage everyone to take it because it, even if you have a background in coffee, even if you have a degree, right, where you focus on agriculture, there's a lot that we teach that I think is new. And so that is an 8-hour course. And we do teach it, or at least I do teach it online. You can teach it in person, but also online. And so when I do it online, I do it in 4 classes, 2 hours each, because it's hard to sit online for 8 hours and focus.
No, you're training some of the trainers of our school, so we know, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's kind of all lecture based, and we of course encourage discussion. But then the intermediate level is I do it over the course of 6 weeks because there's independent work involved. So we have kind of 4 hours of lecture. We do a deep dive into history and sort of theories of sustainability and development. And then we show people how to sort of analyze case studies. So analyze projects in coffee that have already taken place. And then students analyze their own case study and present that to the class. And the idea is they focus on something that's really interesting to them. And then at the end of intermediate, they start to think about the design of their own project, and they kind of brainstorm. And you find that students are really dreaming big at that stage. And then in professional, they design a full project. They learn about through a series of 4 classes, project design, how to develop and design a project and carry it out, how to measure success of the project and establish kind of your expectations for outcomes, measure those over time. We talk about research, qualitative research, and how to do that in your project. And then over the course of 5 to 6 months, they actually carry out a part of that project. So that's when people realize, okay, I had this big dream in intermediate, and in 6 months, I can only do a really small part of this. And so, we see that foundation is geared at like, here's everything you can think about. In intermediate, people start narrowing their focus to try to see, what is it that I care about? Where can I have an impact? And then in professional, they actually try to, carry out their own project, design something and have that impact, and learn just how hard it is to, design and develop a project, but how rewarding it is.
Into the ground, actually.
Yeah.
I see. Okay, yeah. Fantastic. Very good. Probably the development of this project and your other activities in coffee has brought you to visit many farms, plantations, actually.
Probably not as much as a coffee buyer or a technical assistant, but I have visited farms, yeah. Yeah.
Okay. We already interviewed several farmers, so we know that a lot is changing. So many farmers are becoming more and more sensible about these elements. Mm-hmm. And are changing their approaches. There is a lot of research behind. Sometimes with the idea of the farmer as just a farmer is not that correct. Right now, we've spoken with a lot of scientists and so on instead. Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. Do you think it's really changing the world of coffee, this approach?
Yeah, I think farmers are being asked for more and more information now. I think like the first wave of that was sort of certifications and being asked to, verify certain methods or farming approaches through certification. And then there was kind of this direct trade movement where a bit anti-certification in the sense that, buyers weren't sure that certification is exactly the kind of information that they wanted to put forward to demonstrate fairness, right? So then moving in, but I think since there was no real verification method of direct trade, now people are looking at different verification methods, but they're asking for sort of more and more information. And I think in part that is for marketing purposes, but in part it can also help farmers to make decisions if they're collecting and organizing, that data. So I do think I do think that farmers are having to become savvy in sort of how to collect and provide this information. And the kind of a sustainability concern is, of course, making sure that they're fairly compensated for all of that, and also being able to use that data for their own decision making. And I guess, you'd probably have to talk individually with farmers about their perspective on that. But that's something I think about with,
Okay. Yeah.
But I really agree with you that it's coffee farmers are so diverse, and to think of farmers not just as farmers, but, scientists and experts in their field and
probably
professionals.
just a part of them,
yeah.
for sure. And maybe our bias is a bit different because we had just a chance to speak with somebody that is so advanced, to contact us. Yeah, because probably many other farmers has not yet these possibilities. Usually we end our interviews with the farmers with the very last question that is related with the strangest situation you met in a coffee plantation.
Oh,
so somebody's telling us about some animals, somebody's telling us about some very strange situation, some curious situation they faced.
Gosh, I'm trying to think of a strange. Oh, well, it probably.
Or the funniest.
No, I probably. I would say the things I've been given, like drinks. There's always like a. I feel like both in Peru and in Uganda, I have been given sort of like a fermented drink that's probably from a certain grain that I've never tasted before, and it's like a very traditional beverage, and just something I've sort of never tasted, and so I think like being sort of overfed with like food and drink, right, is probably and those interesting things I've encountered is probably one of the but it's a highlight too, right? So
I don't know if I want to try it or not. Anyway,
yeah, it's but yeah, it's a highlight too to be able to have the privilege to kind of learn from people in those cultures too.
I agree. It's a great privilege. At the end, for loving coffee in general, I think that you have the chance to know, not everything for sure, but anyway, to know about the whole trail of it is absolutely very interesting, very nice. So we also try to encourage the people to have some trip to the origin, to visit some coffee farms, because really it can tell them a lot. Probably not just about coffee, but even about society in general. So we fully agree with you.
Yeah.
Nora, we thank you for your time, for a great interview. You have given us a lot of tips, a lot of things, way to think about in a different way, the world of coffee. So thank you again for your, bye, enjoy.
No, thank you.